What's up, guys? In today's episode, we are bringing yet another video back on the SeaDoo Spark. We're going to show you how to get a decent radio on this thing for under 50 bucks. Stick around. Alright, so getting into it, for those of you that may have not been to this channel before, we do have a small series on the SeaDoo Spark, and essentially we address some of the things that SeaDoo and Bombardier didn't really do a great job when they first made this thing, such as storage and things of that nature. But as I said in this video, we're going to be addressing the sound part. Yes, you can buy a sound system from the manufacturer, but it's like 800 bucks. It's absolutely ridiculous. So again, I'm going to show you how to put a radio in here for under 50 bucks. That I think overall is a pretty decent choice. Now, this radio is good up to about 30 miles per hour. Once you get past that, you're probably not going to hear the music very good or very clearly at that. But for me, I'm not one of those guys that go shooting down the lake with music screaming. And with that said, we're going to get into it. Now I'm going to go ahead and put a link in the description below for this actual stereo itself, but here I have it mounted on the bars right now temporarily. I wanted to make sure I could get it on there. The mounts that it comes with are either way too small for these handlebars or way too large, so I had a custom 3D print, and again I'll also put a link to that down below so you guys can have this thing obviously and have it working and not have to mount in some weird place. So let's get into actually putting this thing on. Alright, so getting into the actual parts, what comes with and what you need. We're going to start with the speakers. Obviously, these are the speakers here. What I'm trying to do with these speakers is I'm going to be mounting them essentially right here like this. So they'll be facing me while I'm riding. And they got a nice aerodynamic basically design to them. They work pretty well, and they're actually pretty sturdy. I had this on an Aquatrax before, and they actually worked really, really well. So that's what we'll be doing with the actual speakers themselves. You'll see that they have a harness coming on each one of them that will connect to this harness here, and then back to the head unit itself. We are going to wire in an on-off switch just because I don't want to leave this on to drain the battery. I like having the options to shut it off, and generally I will run this somewhere inside the glove box if it's possible. I'm going to try that. And then we have a couple different brackets here. Now, I won't be using these brackets with the exception of using these holes to drill out up in the plastic there because they are not needed, nor will I need the actual bracket, again, that was used to mount the main unit because you can clearly see this is way too small. That's like 5/8 of an inch. I'm not sure that's for a mini bike or what that's for, but it's not going to work for what we need. So let me start by getting the head unit on. I'll show you what that looks like, and then we'll work into these speakers right here. Alright, again, here is the head unit here, and I just want to show you exactly how that is mounted. So essentially the 3D print, I actually used supports. Don't use support on this, it's not necessary, but it'll really look cleaner if you don't. But you can kind of see how that thing is mounted on there. It's nice, it directs right towards me, so I don't have to really worry about this thing angling a weird direction. It kind of angles right towards your face, so I kind of like it like that. But what's going to happen is the wiring harness is going to be run down right next to the rest of this wiring harness, down through the center here, and then you're going to have to go ahead and disconnect or take off this cover right here that goes to your battery. And obviously your battery being down there, it's going to be hardwired to that, but we're going to have a switch inside here that's going to stop that from being left on, like I just shared with you. So let's go now. Let's get the speakers mounted real quick. It's pretty easy. I'll show you exactly how I do that and show you what it looks like when it's done. Okay, so the first thing you want to do to get to these speakers is pop off your side panel. It's really easy. You guys can kind of see how the tabs are. You're essentially going to pull down here and pull straight back. You'll see that everything pops out of where it's supposed to be. It's really easy to get in out. And you'll be able to reach around the back side here, or backside here, and be able to touch to make sure this unit's flat. Now what I did next to figure out how I wanted my speakers angled, I kind of set them and put a mark on them. And now that I know where it sits, I went ahead and took my metal bracket and I set it here, and I used a permanent marker to mark exactly where I wanted. I got 4 holes, which is probably kind of hard to see there, and a larger hole behind it. The larger hole is actually for the connector to get through right there. So you can make a small one if you want to cut the connector off, but I decided not to. I'm just going to make a little bit larger hole than the 4 small pilot holes. We'll screw it in from the back, and then that side will be done. We'll move over to the other and do the same thing. Alright, and so now you will see that the holes are drilled. It's time to go ahead and screw this thing on. A little bit of a pro tip. If you guys don't have a magnetized screwdriver, it's really easy to make one magnetized. All you're going to do is basically take a large magnet like a subwoofer, and you're just going to kind of swipe this thing the same way on it about 3 times, and before you know it, this thing will be magnetized just like mine. This is detrimentally important if you're trying to get a screwdriver in a weird area and you don't want to drop and lose the screws like this situation here. So go ahead and do that if you get a chance to, or if you have a magnet, and I'll show you what the speaker looks like all installed. Alright, and so there is our speaker installed. Now I will tell you, I was getting kind of irritated getting the screws in. The first one was easy, the others were basically impossible to see. So I went ahead and pulled out this little side panel here. It actually goes right here. There's an 8mm screw right here, and there's a push pin just down here. Real easy to get out, pops out, and it's so much easier to see down there now that it's out of the way. Let's go ahead and get this other side in. Okay, and so before I close this wiring up so you can't really hardly see it, I'm kind of show you what I'm more or less gonna do. So I don't want the connectors right here to be getting stuck inside where the steering arm is going, so it destroys them. So I'm gonna try to bundle those up and bring them up higher and get this thing wrapped around so you can't really see it. But then the wire or waterproof connectors runs down in the power. This the main power is gonna go straight through here down into the battery, whereas the ground is actually gonna go to the switch, which is right here. Then the other side of the switch will run down the same way through to the ground. Now, theoretically, that should work fairly well. The downside I have right now is I'm working with what I got. If it was my choice and I had a waterproof switch, it'd be going right here. But because it's not, I'm gonna have to take some silicone and silicone the outsides to make sure moisture doesn't get in these slits, because if it does, eventually it will stop working. So let me go ahead and get everything set up and I'll show you kind of what that looks like when it's all said and done. All right, and here you guys go. I think overall it looks pretty darn good. It seems to turn well and not have any problems. Something to keep in mind, if you guys do have a Spark Trix like this one, and you guys, for whatever crazy reason, decide to use your handlebars and lift them up and down all the time, you want to make sure that your wiring has enough play to go up and down that you're not going to pull wires out of something, so keep that in mind. But, again, it's running down here, as you said before, or saw before, that it runs to here. You see it's split. It's got some black silicone on it to cover it, back in, and then both wires go down there to the battery. And of course there is a switch inside, which obviously isn't flush and we have to make flush. Like so. So there it is right there. It's pretty straightforward. The only thing that there is left to do is throw this thing back together and, well, see how it sounds. Alright, with everything back together, we're going to open up our console here. We're going to press our power button. We're going to look at our screen. We're going to touch power.
Play by TF card.
Of course you're going to get a oddly weird, maybe Asian voice. That comes on all these things, and obviously I had to pause it because there's copyrighted music on this. I can't play that. I don't want to strike. Nonetheless, I can tell you that the total volume and numbers on this goes up to 15. It always defaults to usually whatever you leave it off at. So if you leave it off at like 5, it's pretty loud. If you turn it up to 15 standing here, it's going to be pretty awkward and extremely loud. Obviously, as you go all the way to the top, you're going to get a little bit of degradation of sound. That's typical of almost 99% of every radio ever made. But I can tell you that this thing's pretty loud, up to about 30 miles an hour, and past that you're getting a lot of wind noise and stuff, so it's just kind of irrelevant past that anyways. But I can say that for under 50 bucks, this thing is 100% definitely worth it, and if you guys can get this thing wired up like I just did right here with minimal effort, you got yourself a heck of a radio for under 50 bucks. So, if you guys liked the video, definitely click that thumbs up, and if you haven't already, click that subscribe button so you guys can be the first to see the new videos that come out on the SeaDoo Spark. I'll see you guys in the next one.